Hi guys and welcome to Fandom Newbie. My name is Shruti and today I'm back with another personalized book recommendations video. Now I made a post on my community tab a few weeks ago, like quite a few weeks ago, asking you guys if you wanted certain personalized book recommendations, and so many of you commented on that post. So I've already made one video like this where I have given these book recommendations. I'll link it up here if you guys want to check it out. And a lot of you on that video commented that you wanted a part 2. So here you are. Here are 16 more personalized book recommendations. Let's get started. So the first prompt is a book that feels warm and cozy and wholesome like House in the Cerulean Sea. Now, I haven't read House in the Cerulean Sea yet, but a book that made me feel very warm and very cozy inside was Jwala Kumar and the Gift of Fire by Hansa Sovendra Shekhar. Now, this is a children's book, so it is very simply written and it is also very, very endearing. Basically, what this book is about is how the life of a family living in Madhya Pradesh, in a village in Madhya Pradesh, how their life changes when a dragon enters their life and basically just solves all their problems. So whether it's like lighting the chulha so that they can cook, or keeping a fire going so that they can keep warm in the winter and during the monsoon, the dragon just solves all their problems. And the way it's written is basically like this fantastical tale, but it's also very sweet and very cute and very, very endearing. But apart from that, apart from just these fantastical and sweet elements, the author has also like thrown light on exactly how difficult living conditions are in rural India. So that part of the book was also very, very enlightening. So if you're looking for a really sweet, endearing story about this family and a dragon that is just, again, I keep saying this, it's just so sweet. So read this book because, yeah, it'll make you feel warm and cozy and very like nice inside. The next prompt is recommend a poetry collection for teenagers or beginners. It should be easy to read or for someone who hasn't read any poetry but wants to get into poetry. Okay, so for this, I recommend The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. The way that Elizabeth Acevedo writes poetry is spoken word poetry. So it's not the poetry that you're generally used to. So it's not like a proper poem. The entire book is written in verse, so they are poems, but because it's spoken word poetry, it's very, very simple to understand. Trust me, I'm someone who just does not understand poetry. I just cannot get into poetry. I don't understand poems. I don't understand like the metaphors that poets use. So if I could follow this book and fall in love with it, trust me, it is a very, very easy poetry book to get through. This book is essentially about the life of this young teenager living in the US, and her name is Xiomara. She is half Dominican, half American, if I'm not mistaken. And basically, she's this really curvy, vivacious, loud, rebellious teenager who is just trying to figure out her life. She has an extremely religious mother who she doesn't get along with. She's also discovering her sexuality and having crushes and falling in love with people. And it just follows her coming of age story. So especially if you're a teenager, I think you will be able to relate to so many things in this book, and it is just absolutely beautifully written. The next one is, please recommend a fantasy book for beginners with an engaging plot and fast read, preferably a standalone, but even a short series is fine. Okay, for this, I recommend Born to be King by Deepak Thomas. Now, this is an Indian fantasy series, and it is honestly one of the most fun Indian fantasy books that I have read. It basically follows our main character, Princess Kautilya, who gets betrayed, like her family gets betrayed. And because of that, she runs away or is like shunned by the kingdom or something like that. And then she gets together with a gang of these like misfit characters, and they basically try to take revenge against the people who have betrayed Kautilya. And it is a very like, it's a very typical fantasy story. It has a lot of fantasy tropes like this revenge plot, a princess who's trying to regain her kingdom. So it has all of these fantasy tropes, but it does have a lot of Indianness in it. So whether it's like the Devi Astras, so like, you know, different armies using Devi Astras against each other. It has a lot of Indian mythological elements in it, which make it very, very relatable for Indians. And even though it is a fantasy book, it is very simply written, but at the same time, it does have good amount of depth and world building and character development. So yeah, definitely check out Born to Be King if you haven't already. The next one is a good romance novel written exclusively from a male perspective. For this one, I recommend The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Now, this book is just one of the most beautifully written love stories. It's a beautifully written war story. It's a beautifully written mythological fiction story. It's just absolutely beautiful. This book basically follows the love and friendship between Achilles and Patroclus, who are both kind of like Greek mythology figures, I think. And it follows how they kind of train together and then they go off together to bring back Helen when she is captured and taken to Troy. This really focuses on the love between Patroclus and Achilles. And like I said, it is just absolutely, absolutely beautifully written. It is narrated from the point of view of Patroclus. So you get like a really inside view into their love, their friendship, and just everything that they face because they are two lovers who go off to war. And yeah, it's just absolutely beautiful. So definitely check it out. The next one is recommend me the best feminist book you have read. And for this one, I have The Mercies by Kiran Millwood Hargrave. Basically, it follows the lives of these women living in a Norwegian village in the 1600s. So what happens is that a storm occurs which kills all the men in that village. So now the women basically have to learn to fend for themselves. So they have to basically take on the role of men. So they have to hunt, fish, and just like learn how to survive without the men. So because of that, because the women become strong and independent and empowered, rumors start spreading in the area that these women are actually they're performing or they are engaged in witchcraft. And because of that, certain men from neighboring villages actually go on a witch hunt against these women, and it just has devastating consequences. What makes this book even more infuriating and also really, really chilling is when I figured out that the events in this book actually happened in real life. So while the characters and everything in this book are actually fictional, the event that it is based on is true. So something like this actually did happen in the 1600s, and it's just so infuriating and so like, it really gave me goosebumps when I read this book. And again, it is very, very beautifully written. So highly recommend The Mercies as well. The next one is a middle grade or YA book with amazing friendship, like Golden Trio level amazing. Okay, now it's a little bit hard, I think, to find friendship as good as Harry, Ron, and Hermione. That's the Golden Trio. But one that I thought was very well done, like friendship was very well done in this book, is The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. Now, the friendship between the three main characters in this book, who are Charlie, Sam, and Patrick, was just amazing. It was such like a deep and true and like quirky friendship among the three of them. And just how Sam and Patrick kind of bring Charlie out of his shell through the bond that they develop was just wonderful to read. And it's this book, I feel, comes close to the Harry, Ron, Hermione dynamic. But again, this book just doesn't deal with friendship. Friendship is a huge part of the story in this book, but it also is basically the coming of age story of Charlie as he's dealing with mental health issues. He's dealing with just finding his place in school and finding his place among peers and people who he feels comfortable with. And it also deals with PTSD, so like traumatic experiences that you experience when you're a child and how you deal with that. So there are a lot of like very deep and emotional themes running through this book, but what binds all these themes together is friendship and how friendship can help you overcome a lot of these issues that you face in your teenage years. And again, it is very, very nicely written. An interesting thing about this book is that it's written solely in the form of letters. So it's Charlie writing letters about his life to an unknown person. So the narrative style of this book was also very, very interesting. So yeah, highly recommend this book as well. The next one is books like Six of Crows, which have amazing character development. I'm not recommending any fantasy book in this, but since you've mentioned specifically character development, an author that I can recommend to you would be Stephen King. Stephen King's books have some of the best character development that I have read in fiction. The way he just layers his characters with nuance and with backstory, and just like gives them so much personality and depth and insight. It's just absolutely amazing. I've read 2 Stephen King books so far, Pet Sematary and The Shining, and both of them have had just immense amounts of character development. I like The Shining more in terms of character development as compared to Pet Sematary, but the character development is just absolutely amazing in these books. He's a very interesting author, and these 2 books, I have absolutely loved them when I read them. So yeah, check out Stephen King books if you like character development and horror and very nuanced and interesting writing. The next prompt is a book of Indian literature comparatively obscure but loved by you. And this one I have Kari by Amruta Patil. Now this is an Indian graphic novel, and it's the only Indian graphic novel that I have ever read, and it was just absolutely wonderful. This story follows the life of Kari, who is a 20-year-old girl who lives in Mumbai, and it follows her struggles as she basically survives a suicide attempt. So it follows her depression, it follows her battles with sexuality. She's a gay woman living in Mumbai in the 90s. So she battles, like accepting her sexuality in a society that's very closed off. It also talks about her challenges in her very, very high pressure job because she works in advertising in Mumbai. So it just follows all of the struggles that Kari goes through, and it is beautifully written, and the illustrations are also very, very haunting. It has like a poetic feel to it when you read it, and it was just super interesting. So check it out. The next prompt is a YA book that deals with mental health the right way. Okay, so this one is a little bit tricky because while I might think that mental health is, handled in the right way, maybe some people might think that it's not. So this is my opinion. I feel that mental health was handled in the right way in this book, and that is from The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan. Now, what this essentially deals with is the way mental health, depression, anxiety, all of these issues, the way they're dealt with in an Asian setting. And that's why I really liked it, because the stigma that, especially in Asian society, so this book is set in China, if I'm not mistaken, but just in Asian society in general, the stigma that is attached to mental health, this book deals with that, and it's written absolutely beautifully. Like, it was a very, very emotional read for me, and it hits home because of that sort of Asian connection. Because even though this is set in, I think it's China, I think, even though this is set in China, it's very similar to what we face in India in terms of like mental health stigma and things like that. Yeah, this is the book that I recommend. The next one is a book with a really quirky, odd, unique protagonist that gives me Luna vibes. Okay, I also really love Luna Lovegood. She is my favorite Harry Potter character. But a book that has a whole bunch of quirky characters which give me Luna vibes is Anxious People by Frederick Backman. This story basically follows a bank robber who tries to steal a cashless bank and basically fails miserably. And then to escape from the police, the robber runs into a building and enters an apartment, and accidentally ends up taking a whole bunch of people who are there to view that apartment, like it's a real estate apartment viewing session. The robber holds all those people hostage by accident. Now, what the book talks about is how, like, all the people who are there in that apartment viewing and who are held hostage, how they all have different issues in life, and just being stuck together in that situation allows them to talk about their issues and come to terms with everything that they are dealing with. And it is very heartwarming, it is super funny and sarcastic, and it is just, all the characters are really, really stupid and quirky and fun to read about. So yeah, highly recommend this book. The next prompt is, can you recommend to me a Gothic novel sort of thing? Okay, so I've not read that many Gothic novels, but one that comes to mind is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Now, this is a classic novel and it basically follows this unnamed protagonist who falls in love with an extremely rich man whose first wife has passed away. Now, this extremely rich man and the unnamed protagonist get married, and he takes her to his really large estate and mansion called Manderley. And basically, this protagonist now has to adjust to life in this really rich place where, like, she feels a little bit out of place. And at the same time, like, there is this constant looming presence of this man's ex-wife. And it talks about just like how this protagonist adjusts to this life, and it talks about how she discovers her identity as she's trying to do away with this looming presence of the ex-wife. There is also this like creepy thriller thing that is going on, and it's described in a very, very beautiful and atmospheric way. So yeah, it just gives those gothic thriller atmospheric vibes, and it is again very, very nicely written. So highly recommend Rebecca. The next prompt is, can you recommend a book with an asexual character as the main character? Okay, so this book doesn't have the main character who is asexual. The main character is actually bisexual in this book, but like the second main character is asexual, and that is Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. This is again a beautifully written book for teenagers. It really captures that time in your life when you're just trying to figure everything out for yourself, whether it's what to do with your career, what to do with your friends, what to do with your relationships, whether you have to follow your heart or follow your mind. Just all the turmoil that you go through as a teenager is captured beautifully in this book. And it's just, yeah, like all of the different sexualities that are explored also through the characters in this book is really well done. So yeah, highly recommend this book. The next prompt is a book based on a Christmas theme. Now for this one, I recommend Let It Snow by John Green, Maureen Johnson, and there is one more author which I'm forgetting, but I'll put the book up so you guys can see who the authors are. But basically, this book is like a collection of short stories around the theme of Christmas and love and friendship, and like basically like young adult stories of Christmas, and they're written by all of these different authors. But the cool thing is like how all these different stories are kind of connected in some way, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, they all take place in the same town. So it's like different teenagers who live in the town and the stories about them around Christmas time. It's just really cute and fun to read. Like John Green is a really good author when it comes to young adult stuff, and so is Maureen Johnson. So yeah, it's a very cute, fun, fluffy Christmas book that you should read because it's a fun time. The next book is a fiction book on the Indian political system. Okay, I have yet to read a fiction book about Indian politics. I've read a few non-fiction books, but a book that I read recently that does cover a little bit of Indian politics and Indian history in a really nice way in a fictional setting is Train to Pakistan by Khushwant Singh. So this is set around the time of partition in India, and it takes place in this town which is on the border. So it's a fictional town, and there are a lot of Sikhs who live in that town and a lot of Muslims and one Hindu family who lives there. And it basically talks about how the lives of these people are affected because of the partition, and it is very heart-wrenching. It does talk about the political atmosphere in India during that time. And yeah, it's a very, very hard-hitting book that deals with an event that was extremely devastating and atrocious that took place in our country. And I feel like everyone should read it because it really gives light to what happened during that time and emotions and how politics were involved. And yeah, it's just a very, very hard-hitting, intriguing read. So definitely check out Train to Pakistan if you haven't. And the last prompt is a book with codes, riddles, and ciphers with Dan Brown vibes. Okay, so this one doesn't really have Dan Brown vibes, but it does have that like cracking codes and like hidden secrets and like secret societies. And that is Mr. Penumbras 24-Hour Bookstore by Robin Sloan. Now, the main character in this book is, I feel, an ex-Google employee or something like that. Like, I'm not sure, it's been very long since I read this book, but it basically follows an ex-Google employee who works at a 24-hour bookstore in which a lot of like weird things are happening. So there are weird customers who come in. He discovers a whole bunch of like codes and secrets hidden in books. And so he gets his other like Google employee friends together, and they get together to solve the mystery of this 24-hour bookstore. And it basically leads them to discover a whole like secret society and like this underground world of books. And it's just very, very like fun and mysterious. And because it's like a book that's about books, it's just super geeky and fun to read. And yeah, that was my video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it and you got some good book recommendations. If you did, give this video a big fat thumbs up. Leave a comment down below letting me know if you have any other prompts for me. Maybe I'll do a part 3 in this series, I guess now. If you guys enjoyed this video, please let me know and leave a comment down below. And of course, do subscribe to my channel for more book related videos. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.